Thanks, Dave. I'll apologize in advance for probably covering much of the ground that Monica covered. Of course, we did both write that paper together. So, and on top of that, probably agreeing with Chris for the most part. But anyway, I'm going to say what I'm going to say anyway. So, I'm going to pick up on three themes that are in the work that that the Positive Energy team has been doing, and that are reflective of current circumstances. And the first one I'm going to talk about is the business of policy and dealing with trade-offs between competing priorities. And again, I just want to kind of emphasize that there is indeed, and I think it's growing, a critical role for more coherent policy and policy dialogue preceding projects in the regulatory phase. And we seem to have lost sight of that, certainly leading up to Bill C-69 and indeed with Bill C-69. So we've got, again, still the regulators and project proponents still sitting ducks, except probably with more expectations attached to them. I want to give kudos to Minister Carr and NRCan for the Generation Energy Initiative. Clearly the right sort of thing, moving in the right direction, but only a start. And I say only a start because we're still operating in a world with two competing and contradictory narratives. We have climate change and the Paris Agreement, and more particularly our 2030 commitment. And then on the other hand, we have the realities of the Canadian energy economy and the world energy economy. And we, I mean, I guess you could characterize it as we've been living in kind of maybe a Donald Trump kind of world where we've been having a fake news conversation going on now for about 30 years, skipping over the contradictions of energy and climate change objectives. And Monica, to extend our barnyard metaphor from the System Under Stress paper, the chickens appear to be coming home to roost. And we can't escape this very much longer, as we've seen recently with the Trans Mountain controversy. So work to do there. Second, dealing with the roles of regulators being well defined within the context of the structure as framed in legislation and relative to the policy space. A few things that I think would characterize an effective system. One, and Monica mentioned this, that ahead of specific applications, opportunities for regulators to be involved in the policy conversation, and there's no reason why that can't be done as long as it's done under appropriate terms of engagement. When dealing with specific applications, not distracted from the core mission of facilitating sustainable energy investment in all of its dimensions. Carrying out that mission in the context of clearly articulated policy, as well as technical regulation in other realms. And finally, with the bulk of the actual decision-making in the hands of regulators who have access to expertise, can exercise their responsibilities through consistent, transparent due process, leaving high degrees of ex post political decision-making as much out of the picture as possible. They are neither necessary nor constructive. My last point concerns the business of capacity, and we can talk a lot about that. And I was heartened last night by our presentation from our friends at the First Nations Major Projects Coalition, the sort of thing that needs to be done, but only the sort of thing, by no means the end of it, but one with some good ideas, some good local initiative, and some support from the senior level of government. There's lots of dimensions to capacity, but I would argue that the foundation, and we've talked a little bit about this, would be a solid national energy information system. And without that, all the talk of public confidence, in my estimation, is largely arm-waving. Such a system need not reinvent the wheel, and there are people in the room here who've done some important work on that, and we can build on that. In my estimation, it needs to be independent and be so perceived, and readily accessible to the population as a whole. Again, we can go on on this. I think it was a bit of a missed opportunity in the last budget. It's one that I hope the federal government will come back to. So are we getting the balance right? some glimmerings, some steps in the right direction, but a very, very long way to go. And in some respects, I think, as with Bill C-69, moving in the wrong direction.